It's time for some Swenk swagger. You heard me? Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 196th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Previously, we heard from Mike Pichata, the man who came from a jail cell and has a story to tell because he is living well. He spent 10 years in the Florida State Penitentiary. Met his wife, actually, who was working there and helping out. She waited for him. They have an incredible story. She lost her job because she married an ex-con, and from absolute rock bottom, they have built a tremendous life, a tremendous business, a tremendous story. So if you have not heard that, be sure to check out thesaleswhisperer.com/session 195. You can listen to the episode there and then get the notes and the links to everything he's doing as well. Next week, we have Mr. Gabriel Weinberg. He is the founder of DuckDuckGo, and I had never heard of DuckDuckGo until a big privacy hack last year. And my interview with him is from several months ago, and I goofed, and he fell through the cracks. We did an interview when we were doing a lot of them, and I have no idea what happened. And I was looking for him actually yesterday when I was studying up on security and does Google manipulate searches. And I realized, oh my gosh, I haven't published this guy. But it's a great story of how he launched a new business, right, as an entrepreneur against a behemoth. You can't get much bigger than Google. How his business is growing and how security and privacy is going to be more of an issue than ever moving forward. You've already seen some big issues, some big hacks, some big exposures from celebrities, from big companies like Target, and you name it. Many, many big companies have had issues with that type of security. And so companies are tracking you. They are pitching you based on the searches that you do. So you really need to take privacy seriously. So you'll enjoy this episode. And I encourage you as well to check out DuckDuckGo. I use that as my default search tool on my iPhone. I use it on my desktop as well. I start there, then I'll switch over to the other guys if I need to get more results. If they're not providing the results, they are a smaller company, so they are not as thorough as Google, but they are very good, especially when you consider how relatively new they are and much smaller than these other guys that are stealing your data, spying on you. But anyway, I digress. Today we have Mr. Jason Swenk. He was referred to me by a mutual friend, and she is more of a friend than ever for introducing me to this guy. You're going to love this episode. Good dude. Built a great business. I won't steal his thunder, but I will tell you my own thunder. Be sure to check out MakeEverySale.com, my new signature program, 20 years in the making, 25 plus videos, 60 plus page handout, downloads, PDFs, scripts, and a lot of other bonuses, including lifetime access and a private membership site where you can ask me questions all the time. But now let's bring on Mr. Jason Swenk. Jason Swenk, the most prolific man with Post-it notes and silent videos, all the way from hot Atlanta. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
Thanks for having me on.
So, we got a mutual friend, and we'll wait to see how this interview goes, if she really is a friend or not for introducing us. But I think she is. I think she at least meant well.
I think she did too.
All right. So you've got an interesting past doing some great work in digital marketing and a digital agency, right? You just turned 39 years old, but I mean, for our listeners that may not know who you are, would you mind give us a little thumbnail sketch, and then we'll dive down the rabbit hole?
Well, you're never supposed to tell a girl's age, so I can't believe you just told mine.
Come on, man. I know how much you weigh, too. Don't make me go there.
There you go.
I will post it publicly.
Yep, there you go. 226. So, oops.
Bam.
All right, well, you can edit that one out. But, Jason Swenk from Atlanta, and I have a lovely wife and two amazing kids that drive me absolutely bonkers, but I kind of got started my career designing websites back in the day. And, the funny story is a friend of mine looked like Justin Timberlake, so I created a website called In Shit, and people started paying me to design websites. So that kind of formed into an agency over the 12 years.
What was the site?
In Shit.
INSHIT.
Yeah. But it was before we could buy, it was so long ago, it was when we used the GeoCity websites, if you remember that.
Sure.
And so it got widely popular, and then people just started paying me money to design websites. So I was like, cool, I'll do this from now on. And then started getting bigger and bigger clients, and working with, doing everything for like LegalZoom and Aflac and Lotus Cars. And then eventually we positioned it to sell it and sold the business. And now I work with amazing people all over the world and help them scale their agencies and systems and all that kind of good stuff. So
you kind of backed into this. Is that a nice way of saying it?
Always. Yeah, I think everything I do, I kind of back into.
So you're designing websites, and it was just you at first, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally, like someone said, design me a website, and I remember I had to go to my dad and said, what's an invoice? This client wants an invoice. What is it?
Oh, wow. And that was just, like 3 years ago, right? Are you still living in the basement?
I still am, yeah.
Okay. Well, your parents love you, so that's
there you go.
That's good, My parents moved 5 times when I was young, but I found them every time. But
they kept. Yeah. I just stayed at their hip. So they can't get away from it.
So you built something. I mean, and that's cool though that you built something that you could sell. So I'd like to dive into that a little bit, because very few people have businesses. They have this kind of cult of personality, and it's basically them. And as soon as they're gone, the business is gone. So how did you create something that was a viable asset that could be sold?
Well, it was a total accident. So, I just started having people constantly coming to me. I just couldn't keep up, and I was just stressing. And I literally was like, well, I need to hire a designer in order to help me out. I should have hired a project manager first, but that's a whole nother story. And so I just wanted to, I started listing out all the stuff I didn't want to do anymore. And so then I started hiring for that. And then we just quickly kept growing. And then we were always hungry. And so I wanted to create something that we could sell one day, because when we started, it was in 99. And so that's when, the .com era was going on, and all my friends were selling their companies for, gazillion dollars. And then when the market tanked, we were like, well, we kind of like what we're doing, and we don't know what else we would actually do after this. So let's keep this going, and let's make sure this funds our hobbies and all that other kind of stuff, and our families, and we just kept building. And the key there, though, was creating the right systems in place so that our employees could actually make decisions based on the business and not just thinking, what would we do?
So you kept saying we. Did you bring in partners?
I brought in a partner about 2 years after I started. And the reason being is I knew I had expertise on selling and creating stuff. But the market was really going, I just saw, if we can combine kind of the heavy custom development and programming with the design and my sales capabilities, we could have something great. And I was right.
Did he have to buy in? How did you structure that? Because I've had a hell of a time in my lifetime with bringing on partners.
Yeah. So at the time, the business after 2 years was like, I think maybe 100,000. So he had a business of a similar size. So we just kind of joined it and did 50-50.
All right. And that worked out, I guess, huh?
It worked out toward the end, yeah. But I always had a motto that you either know the bad partner or you're the bad partner.
Yeah. And so that's why you had to sell, because he kicked you out because you were the bad partner that weighed too much?
No. I still lived at home, so he didn't like worrying with my parents, right? No.
It's tough to have, important client meetings, in your parents' basement. But
I know. Now everybody thinks I live at home still. I don't live at home.
You don't even like your parents. Come on, bring it out. This is therapy, man. Get it off your chest.
There you go. But no, I mean, things were always, ups and down, but He was an amazing guy, but the business outgrows certain people. And then we were just lucky enough, 12 years later that we got to, the 8-figure mark and people wanted to buy us. And so we were like, okay, cool. Take it. And then we didn't know what we were going to do after that.
So you were doing 8 figures in revenue, or you sold for 8 figures?
We were a $13.1 million agency.
Nice.
Yeah. So we grew pretty quick. And that was kind of toward the end of our career. We had really good growth, but we just started getting the right clients and knowing the right people to go after.
And were you doing a lot more for people than just website and coding? I mean, were you becoming a full-blown marketing consulting firm?
Yeah, I mean, we did everything around user experience, social media. We really started kind of taking a lot of all the social media data and combining that with business intelligence and really driving it to the next level. And I hate to say we were a full-service agency. I mean, we had over 100 people, but, and it's hard to be that, but we had our specialization. So we weren't going after everybody. We were going after a certain type of client that had a certain particular problem that needed a certain solution. I always just hate when everybody says, hey, yeah, we're a full service, because most of the time they're full of it.
So they're a full crap service agency. But yeah, that doesn't roll off the tongue. So, yeah, you got to change that up. So how do you figure out who to go after, though?
Well, in the very beginning, we went after everybody, which was a mistake. And that's why we struggled for a number of different years. But then we started just really looking at where the market was and where we wanted to go after. And so our specialization was around the technologies that we knew. And we knew we wanted to work with the biggest companies in the world. So we started looking at what are the technologies that they use and how do we become the best strategic partner for that partner that could lead us to the bigger companies. And that's how we got in there for most of the part.
So that's interesting, because I came from corporate America. I worked for big companies, and I always hated the politics, and I still hate the multiple meetings. We got to have a meeting to have the meeting, to plan for the meeting, to look at the proposal, to then plan another meeting to give it to legal and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, can one of you make a decision, yes or no? And if it's yes, give me the money so we can get to work. I mean, how did you develop, the patience or the strategies to go after these super large clients?
Well, we started looking at how could we get our foot in the door and offering something smaller rather than our core service, and how could we actually help them ahead of time. So, like, for example, we would call Porsche. And we would say, all right, Porsche, we've done a lot of research in your industry because we've been working with Lotus, and we see a gap in the market where you can actually have really kind of a strategic leverage on the marketing side. Are you interested to look at the data that we have? So I offered them value. And then as we're in there, we started thinking about what was something small that we could offer to them that they could say yes to quickly. And then once we did that, so maybe that's a strategy meeting where we basically define what they're going to get from that. And then at the very end say, hey, do you think this is a good plan? And then they'll say yes and be like, would you like us to do it for you? And they'll say yes. And that's how we got in there each time.
Right. Well, and that's smart, too. I mean, you weren't just pure cold calling. I mean, you had experience with a competitor, and you could reference that. I mean, obviously, wasn't a non-compete sort of thing. You weren't divulging trade secrets. It's like, here's what we're seeing in the industry. And any smart company is going to want to know what their competitors are doing. Right? Yeah,
and the other thing too is even if we did not have a competitor in that market that we actually served, one other strategy that worked really extremely well is we used the service, I can't remember what it's called, but we looked at all the companies that were spending over $10,000 a month in AdWords. And we basically call them up and say, hey, I noticed you're spending over $10,000 a month in AdWords. We'd love to do this audit for you, making sure that you're spending this the right way, because what we find is people spending over this certain amount is doing this, and you could be wasting a lot.
And they were open to that?
Almost always. Our closing rate was about 85%. And at the time, we were actually going through, just going down the list. Now, these were targeted companies. So we knew they were spending over this amount, and met all the other criteria that we had.
Right. But I mean, that's like, I get that call about once a month. Hey, we're with such and such merchant processors, and we're a direct blah, blah, blah. And we just going to be in the area. We've just stopped by. We'll look at your rates, and we guarantee we can lower your rate, in your merchant account. And I'm like, okay, dude, how about this? You guarantee me $500, and you can come to my house and look at my billing. And if you can't beat the rate, then you're going to give me the $500. Otherwise, if you can't beat the rate, then I'll switch. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, you got to think that's with the commodity, right?
Right.
We're going after a totally different audience. So we're not calling, saying, hey, we're a phone service provider and that kind of stuff. So, we're offering a lot, we're kind of selling you're spending so much more than you actually should with AdWords, because everybody thinks they're overspending with AdWords, if you remember back in the day. So they probably still do.
Right. So that's cool. And then is that like public knowledge, or do you have like some secret software you could subscribe to that shows who's spending that kind of money?
So at the time, we just Googled it. So I bet if you said, companies that tell you how much people are spending in AdWords, I think what they do is they basically probably have some kind of algorithm that says how often are they shown and what's kind of the price they're paying, and then it calculates kind of a smart decision based on that. I think that's how those softwares work.
Yeah. Very nice. So, and you sold your business when? Last couple of years?
Yeah, the end of 2011.
Okay. So why'd you do that? I mean, it sounds like you had a good thing going.
Yeah, real good thing going. Yeah. It's kind of like when you reach the top of the mountain, which I felt we were, we wanted to do something different, even though we didn't know what something was different. And then the other thing too is it's like, I wanted to see what else was out there. I thought the grass would be greener on the other side. I just didn't know the grass would be greener on the side you actually water, meaning I wanted to go develop a product rather than just do services. But then when I started developing a product, I hated it.
Yep. Very interesting. So then you're kind of sort of getting back in that space. I mean, so what are you doing now? You're doing your own brand. Is it more consulting, or are you taking on clients onesie twosie? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I basically look at myself as kind of a media company for digital agency owners, where I'm putting out information that helps them on the information that I wish I had. So whether it be programs, consulting, one-on-one, speaking events, all that kind of stuff. Yes, I do all that. But at the end of the day, I just want to provide that information that I wish I had. And I kind of fell into it or walked backwards into it, basically because my competitors started reaching out to me saying, hey, Jason, how did you land these big clients? How did you sell your agency? How did you do this, this, and this? I basically said, I started helping them out, and I truly loved it. Right. And I said, maybe I can create a business out of this. And at the time, I was developing an iPhone app, and I just didn't like that iPhone app because I guess I didn't like the pictures I was taking of my food. It was an iPhone app where you take pictures of everything that you're eating, and it gives you a visualization so you can change your eating habits.
Oh,
and I just didn't like it anymore. And so it was a perfect transition. Started helping people out, and then started a podcast, and just kept getting emails from people saying, hey, love your content, and you've been helping me out. And I'm like, cool, this is awesome. And it's the coolest job I've ever done.
And you've had this now for a couple of years?
2 years.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so how do people find you?
Just go to my website, jasonswenk.com. And Swenk is spelled S-W-E-N-K. It's not with an A. I'm not related to Hillary or that magazine.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. But I mean, is it just organic? Is it just word of mouth? I mean, how are you growing? Did you have a book of business, or I guess whenever you sell your business for 8 figures, I mean, that gets in the news, and I'm sure that created some buzz right there and probably got your phone ringing. I mean, have you just been kind of rolling with that momentum, or are you doing some of the old things you used to do for your clients and applying it to your own business?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of momentum when we first sold, and then, but I was doing the iPhone app, so I turned away people, and then I was like, no, I'm not going to do consulting, I'm not going to do advising, and then I just started helping out, people, and I was like, after I was doing the iPhone app, I was like, well, let me get back into it. So I basically kind of started from scratch, and how I basically built my business was just putting out good information, the podcast, the video show, and then Facebook ads has just been amazing. And I really started looking at it, how can I capture people's information? Because this is where I messed up at the agency, especially in marketing. I just did kind of the typical Me Too agency or the Me Too website, right? Hey, go to my website, go to my typical service page, and then if you want to work directly with me, go to the contact page. All right. Rather than, hey, just let me raise your hand and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. Send me this cool video or send me this cool toolkit in order to do this. And then using my campaigns in order to build trust, establish authority, and help them out first. And then that will create this huge swarm of people actually coming to you all the time.
All right. Let's dissect that a little bit. You're
Sure.
saying people, so I'm on your website right now, need my help, there's resources. So you're saying somebody could reach out and say, I've got a question or I'm struggling with, you said Facebook ads. I mean, you would just send some information on that specifically?
Well, if you're looking at the homepage, like right where it says, hey, do you want to know how to scale, enjoy, and build? I'm not looking at the website, but it says start here. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a lead magnet. Then if you scroll down a little further, you'll see another lead magnet that says, hey, you can read through countless amounts of books, blogs, or podcasts, or whatever it is, or you can get my insights free, click here. So lead magnet number 2.
Okay.
Then you scroll down a little bit further, and it says, hey, do you want to know exactly how to build a 7-8 figure agency? Click here. Another lead magnet. Do you want to know how to generate leads? Another lead magnet. So it's about asking questions, I think, is the most powerful, right? So you're the sales whisperer. Like when you're running a sales meeting, you always ask questions because it puts the attention on them versus you. And you want to do that the same in your marketing and on your website. So that's why my whole website's a question. Even on my About page, if you go to my About page, outside of my homepage and any landing page, my About page captures the most amount of leads because I ask questions. So like when you go there, it says like, have you ever wondered how to scale your business or generate leads? Well, you're in the right place. And then I give a little credibility and I say, hey, opt in here.
Right.
And it's all about getting the email address. And then as you get the email address, that's kind of like the first milestone. Then you go, well, how do I keep providing them value? How do I make sure that they digest and actually implement the stuff that they opted in for? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people miss out on that, especially on marketing.
Right. I mean, what's up with the cat, dude? What's up with the cat in a video? Tell me.
So I was doing a video. I was trying to do a serious video, and I'm not a serious person. And so my cat just kept coming in. I was like, well, screw it. You're going to be in it. So I held up the cat, just kind of joking around. And then I was like, because I always tell people my biggest competition is cat videos and procrastination. So I was like, well, might as well put my competition in a video with me.
Man, that's awesome. So, all right, I'm looking here. So this is interesting. I like your start here, but you don't have just like one CTA. I mean, you've got 1, 2. I scroll down. I can buy something right off of your homepage from this proposal.
Yeah.
Then you've got 3 other opt-ins. Looks like you're using lead pages.
I am. Right? Lead boxes.
Yep, lead boxes. And then a little farther down, then you got some articles. And then boom, so the 1, 2, 6, so the 7th or 8th CTAs on the very bottom. I want a blueprint. So I got to imagine you've tested this. There's some strategy here because a lot of times people will have like just one big thing, one big pop up, one big CTA. Everything points to that one thing, and you're kind of going against that grain a little bit.
Yeah. So you got to think my homepage is not a landing page where I'm sending paid traffic to.
Right.
Okay. So if I was sending paid traffic, so if you go to like jasonswank.com/budgetbuster, right? One call to action, right? It's like one point of view. Just go there, fill out this information. So over the years, I've been a part of, I think, over 3,500 websites on the strategy, from Aflac.com, LegalZoom, Lotus Cars, you name it. And so I've looked at how people actually go on the website. So most people will hit your website, your homepage, really quick, and they'll scroll down maybe 25%, right above the fold. And then what they'll do is they'll click on the about page, they'll click on maybe your blog or your content, and then they'll make the judgment of, hey, can this person actually help you? And then what happens is you have repeat customers or repeat people trying to figure out, well, what else does this person have? So then they actually go back to their homepage, and then they'll actually scroll down. So like if you install kind of like that like scroll tool like in Specklet I actually use, and it will tell you how far people are actually scrolling down. And most people don't make it all the way down to the bottom, but your homepage should be almost kind of like a directory of trying to figure out who is the right person for which. So that's why I have multiple options on the homepage. And the cool thing is most people actually opt in for the playbook on the homepage, which is actually down, which was always pretty intriguing to me when we started first tracking that. But it's always usually on the second or more than the first visit to that page when they're actually clicking on that.
Right. What was the tool you mentioned? Inspectlit?
Yep, Inspectlit. And so it's a free tool, or you also can do with the premium service of it as well. But it will tell people where their mouse is and where they're scrolling. So it kind of gives you like a heat map of it.
Yeah, very cool. Do you see? I know in small businesses, people are not keen on diving into the analytics. It's a lot of fly by the seat of your pants. Is that as rampant in the bigger businesses? Do they also suffer from going on gut feel versus analytics?
It depends on the leadership team. And, usually the smaller businesses are actually way ahead of the bigger businesses, just because it's almost kind of like turning like Titanic, and the bigger businesses are just trying to get promoted and not get fired. It's kind of like the TPS report from Office Space. Actually, when we were working with some of these big brands, actually thinking back, we liked working with the smaller unknown ones because they actually were more innovative rather than some of the bigger ones that just were like, well, we don't want to screw it up, but we don't want it that much better either.
And what would a typical engagement look like? I mean, were these long-term retainers? Were they project-based, or would they start small, like you said, and then like with a scope of work and then evolve into a retainer-based engagement?
Yeah, some would start small. Almost always, we would always lead with some kind of foot in the door. Because if you go in for the jugular, it's kind of like pitching marriage right off the bat. The girl's going to slap you. And so what we would do is we would start off with some kind of strategy engagement, which would lead to some kind of project over about like a 3-month period. That would lead to a retainer. And, at the time when we were at our max size, we wouldn't take on projects that were under 50,000. So most of our average projects were like 250,000 plus. And then our retainers were anywhere from, 50 to, 100,000 a month. And how much do you need the old CYA, right? Are you doing this on a 1-page contract, or do you have like a 37-page contract that 12 lawyers wrote over 12 years and is very onerous? Because I've seen and done both. Yeah, so it depends on the company. So the bigger companies like the Coca-Colas, the Home Depots, they're going to have their own master service level agreements, right? Their MSAs that we'll have to sign and kind of do some red lines. But if we were working with some of the other ones, they would use our contracts. Now, when it comes to the proposal, our proposals were long, but we wanted to put all the detail in there. Now, the key to it when you're actually selling this, and a lot of people, when they actually buy my proposal template, they're like, man, this is long. Client's never going to go through it. I'm like, exactly. You have to walk them through it. And if you actually don't walk them through it, you're missing out big time. And so we would never send the proposal to a client. Even if the client said, hey, send me the proposal, we're like, that's not how it works. If you want us to, pitch you this job, we'll review it with you. And then you actually build the proposal with them over time. And then you can walk them through the 23, 30-page document.
Would you charge for a proposal?
Sometimes we would. Especially if we were going to do a lot of strategy in there. If this was just, a website that, was a boilerplate, public facing website that was like 50 pages, no, we wouldn't charge for the proposal. But if we needed to sit down and do a bunch of different, meetings with them, yeah, we would charge for it.
Right. Yeah, because I've gotten to the point, I don't do a lot of services, so I ask for a small retainer up front to see who's for real. If they won't pay $500 to have a couple of calls to dig in, then I'm like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I learned that in technology sales years ago. We were selling computers, and I would get a fee to send an engineer to install the gear. It was a free trial. They could have it for 30 days, but it's like, you're going to pay for us to install it, to set it up right, to help you learn it real quick, learn the controls, and then we'll get out of your hair. But like if they wouldn't pay up front, $1,500, then they sure as heck weren't going to pay $100,000 for this new computer system.
Yeah, and it just needs to match up with what your core service is. So,
right.
At the time when we were selling $100,000 jobs, our foot in the door strategy meetings were anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. Right. Sometimes we go down to $2,500, but the idea is you're not using that to make money. You're just using that to weed off.
Right.
What I do now, because a lot of people want to get on a call with me to do. Have me build them a lead generation system, like just kind of map out how mine's working. So what I tell them is I do a real person refundable deposit. Mm-hmm. If by the end of the call you don't think this was worth it, I give it back to you.
Right.
It's just, I just do this because I was just getting too much, people contacting me. And they were wasting my time. So I felt if they would, bring out their credit card, then they were a little bit more serious.
Right. Plus they'll pay attention. I sell Entreport, HubSpot, Infusionsoft. I was just talking with a guy, actually the guy right before you and I got on the call here, and he's looking at all three, and he's like, hey, it's nice. Entreport doesn't charge a setup fee, and you get a 90-day money-back guarantee. And I'm like, that is nice to a degree. I said, but most people, when they go buy that software, they buy it on January 1st. They're immediately putting a reminder on their calendar on March 25th to cancel the software.
Yeah, I know.
Even if they don't plan on canceling it, right? Because maybe things work out, and a lot of times it does. But it's like going into a marriage with a prenup, and so they do have a bigger cancellation. If people don't pay something up front, then they're more likely to cancel. That they're not as invested in it. So everybody listening to this, I'd recommend to take Jason's advice that the real person refundable deposit. And I do the same thing. Get a little bit up front. Go for the small close. It makes the bigger close really very easy and very natural. Is that what you find?
Oh, always. Yeah. And the other thing too is you always try to figure out what's the impact, right? There's so many people that when they go in for, a sales call, they're just talking about their features and their services, but really ask the client, what's the impact of you continue going down this road without doing anything?
Yep.
And what's the impact that's going to happen if you actually fix it?
Right.
And have them come up with a value, not you.
Right.
And then you actually create that urgency, and you also have leverage. So you can do a really amazing follow-up rather than the stupid kind of begging strategy, right? It's kind of like, hey, I'm just calling to see if you reviewed the proposal and you made a decision yet. I'm like, might as well put a begging sign on versus like how I would call up. I would say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, so I presume that you fixed that $1 million problem that you had.
Mm-hmm. Clearly, you've been listening to the Sales Podcast and reading my blog for about a decade. So
always. Yeah. I don't go to bed without listening to it.
I see. Secret stalker. Very cool. And that's important, and I do get into that. I get into asking better questions. I have the 7 deadly sins of selling, and one of them is treating selling like a beggar. And that was the very first product that I made 10 years ago, was the 7 deadly sins of selling. And so I'm glad you brought that up. You can't stop begging, stop begging. You're not there to be a whipping boy. You're not there for that prospect to beat their frustrations out on. Ask the hard questions, right? Get them uncomfortable. Who besides you cares? How long has this been an issue? Why is now important? Why do you care now to address this issue? And let them be uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And the sale comes pretty dang naturally. All right, man. So any final words of wisdom? A question I've started asking my guests is, imagine our listeners they're jogging, they're on a plane, they're driving, they can't take notes. But what do you want them to do after listening to this? When they can pull over or get back to their desk, what's the final word, motivational or inspirational or whatever that to get them to take some action after listening to this?
I mean, the key word is action, right? I always had a motto: action leads to transactions. And, you can't always make it perfect, but if you take action, you're going to learn it and constantly keep making it better. So, and always just know that you can always learn something new. Right. I mean, I'm always trying to take in as much as I possibly can because I don't have it all figured out, and no one does. Anybody that says they all have it figured out is full of crap.
Right.
And you can always get better and better because the market keeps changing. And that's the exciting thing. But, you're not going to learn anything unless you take action, because the best way to learn is for you to make mistakes.
Yeah. Amen. All right, man. Jason Swenk, SWENK, jasonswenk.com. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast, man. It's been great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. So when a friend recommends you meet someone and that someone has built an 8-figure business and sold it and is kicking back at home making cat videos, now you know why I wanted to talk to this guy. I hope you got a lot of value out of that. I love what he said at the end. Action leads to transactions. Always ask, what's the impact? Reconsider how you do proposals. Sending them over for people just to look at and shop around is never a good idea. And your prospects are doing that to you. They've done it since the age of time, since proposals were ever even thought of. So look at how he's doing this and see what you can do to at least take better control of the quoting process. Jason's got a great video on the Budget Buster, and I've got a link on this episode. So thesaleswhisperer.com/session 196. But I've got a link there, and it's a quick video, but it's amazing how impactful it is. It shows that big things do come in small packages. But he gives 2 different ways to get to the bottom of understanding what the budget is for the prospect. You need to get that understood and established up front. The worst thing to do is to spend an hour, a week, a month, a quarter with a prospect only to find out they don't have money. It is okay to ask for the budget in the beginning. If they won't give you that, then that prospect is wanting free consulting. And you can't get rich, you can't pay the bills, you can't buy Huggies, you can't buy good scotch giving free consulting. So visit the page, thesaleswhisperer.com/session 196. Get a link to that Budget Buster page that Jason has. Make sure you're taking control of the money conversation. Make sure you're getting paid a significant portion of the money, 50% or more, up front. Learn from Jason. Take notes. I always say, listen multiple times to these episodes. Take notes and apply what you're learning, and especially action leads to transactions. You've heard me say over and over again the great quote from Gary Halbert: motion beats meditation. Too many people are sitting around learning and not applying what they learn. You know enough, now go do. If you want to learn, though, how to sell better, how to take control of the sale, how to have prospects stop blowing you off, how to have these money conversations, how to understand the 7 deadly sins of selling and overcome them, how to set firm agendas, how to reach decision makers, set firm appointments that are mutually agreed upon, then check out makeeverysale.com. 20 plus years rolled up into that, over 25 videos, handouts, workbooks, lifetime access, and a real-time access to me through our private Facebook group, makeeverysale.com. Thanks for listening. Please share this. Please give it a 5-star review. And remember to sell different.